you hurt?
No, somebody help.
Somebody what? What? I need to know what's wrong.
Boca Raton, Florida is a city known for its beautiful beaches, affluent communities, and vibrant cultural scene. The area now known as Boca Raton was originally inhabited by the Tequesta Indians, who lived along Florida's southeastern coast for thousands of years before European contact. The name Boca Raton first appeared on early Spanish maps, where the term Boca de Ratones referred to a rocky or jagged inlet. The term ratones was used by Spanish sailors to describe hidden sharp rocks that could damage ships, though Boca Raton itself was not originally located on an inlet. Boca Raton remained largely undeveloped through the 19th century, with only a few settlers calling it home. It wasn't until the 1920s that the city began to take shape, thanks to the vision of architect Addison Misner. Misner, who was a prominent figure in the development of Palm Beach and other Florida cities, dreamed of transforming Boca Raton into a luxurious resort destination. His architectural style, which is characterized by Mediterranean revival and Spanish colonial designs, left a lasting imprint on the city's aesthetic. However, Misner's ambitious plans were cut short by the collapse of the Florida land boom in the mid-1920s, and Boca Raton's growth slowed significantly. It wasn't until after World War II that the city began to expand rapidly. The development of Florida Atlantic University in 1961 and the arrival of IBM's computer manufacturing plant in the 1960s were pivotal moments in Boca Raton's transformation. These developments brought new residents, jobs, and economic opportunities, establishing the city as a centre for education, technology, and innovation. Today, Boca Raton is a thriving city with a population of almost 100,000 people. It's known for its high quality of life, with top-rated schools, extensive parks, and a strong sense of community. The city's downtown area has undergone significant revitalisation, offering a blend of upscale shopping, dining and entertainment options. The 911 dispatch centre for the city is located in the Communications Centre of Boca Raton. It's civilian operated and is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was early in the morning of the 19th of August 2019 when a phone call came in. The operator answered to find a Spanish man on the other end of the line. He sounded terrified as he tried to explain that somebody was hurt.
Are you hurt?
No, somebody help.
Somebody what? What? I need to know what's wrong.
I don't know. I did the delivery. I did the delivery for this house.
Yes.
And then I heard a lot of screaming inside. When I go inside, I saw the lady in the floor.
Okay, so did something happen to you? Because you're crying. I don't understand.
Yeah. What do you think? I was to see somebody in the floor or start laughing or something like that?
Sir, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but tell somebody, please.
So you need paramedics, not the police. That's why I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, both.
Evelyn Udell was born on the 28th of August 1943 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to Lewis and Lillian Smith. From an early age, Evelyn, who is affectionately known as Evie, demonstrated a profound love for books and learning, a passion that would shape her life and career. Raised in a warm and supportive household, she was encouraged to pursue her intellectual curiosity, which blossomed into a lifelong dedication to education and literature. Evelyn's academic journey led her to Pennsylvania State University, where she excelled in her studies. A brilliant student, she was inducted into the prestigious Pi Beta Kappa Honor Society, a testament to her academic excellence and her commitment to scholarship. It was at Penn State that Evelyn met the love of her life, a man named Joel Udell. They were both ambitious young students with a shared passion for knowledge, and their connection was immediate and deep. In 1964, the same year that she graduated, Evelyn and Joel were married, beginning a partnership that would last for 55 wonderful years. After their wedding, Evelyn and Joel settled into Ambler, Pennsylvania, where they built a life. As Joel established himself in his career, Evelyn continued to pursue her own academic ambitions. She earned her Master of Library Sciences from Drexel University, a degree that allowed her to transform her passion for books into a fulfilling career. Evelyn began her professional journey as a librarian at LaSalle University, where she quickly became known for her dedication to students and her ability to connect them with the resources they needed to succeed. Evelyn's work wasn't just about organising books. It was about fostering a love of learning in others. She later brought this same dedication to Gwynd Mercy College, where she continued to make a lasting impact on the academic community. Evelyn and Joel's marriage was a partnership in the truest sense of the word. They supported each other through all of life's challenges, raising two sons, Haran and Maury, who inherited their parents' love of learning. Haran and Maury eventually followed in their mother's footsteps by excelling in their studies and eventually becoming successful lawyers. Their careers took them to Florida, a move that prompted Evelyn and Joel to consider a new chapter in their own lives. So in 2002, Evelyn and Joel relocated to Boca Raton, Florida, eager to be closer to their sons and to enjoy their grandchildren. But even in this new phase of her life, Evelyn's passion for books and learning never waned. She took up a position at Florida Atlantic University, where she took on a role as a cataloger in the Technical Services Department. She was described as a kind, caring, and hardworking member of the staff. Evelyn remained here until her retirement at the age of 75 in 2018. For over a decade, she had brought the same dedication and warmth to her work at FAU that had characterised her entire career. She was more than just a librarian. She was a mentor, a guide, and a beloved figure among students and faculty alike. Evelyn's life was one of quiet but profound impact. She dedicated herself to the service of others, whether through her work in libraries, her commitment to her family, or her support of the educational institutions that had shaped her own life. In retirement, Evelyn embraced a life that was filled with joy and fulfillment that she had always envisioned. She and her husband Joel lived in the Colonnades at Glen Oaks, a quiet and welcoming community with a lake and tree-lined streets. Travel had always been a passion for the couple, and retirement afforded them the freedom to explore more time together. Travel had always been a passion for Evelyn and Joel, and retirement afforded them the freedom to explore more together. Evelyn remained deeply connected to her local community, and her love of books and learning continued to be a central part of her identity. In the early morning of the 19th of August 2019, David Gonzalez was tasked with delivering and installing a washer and dryer at the home of a client, 75-year-old Evelyn Udell. She had purchased the items from Best Buy, so David set off towards her home in the Colonnades in Boca Raton, Florida, with his 21-year-old colleague, Jorge Lechazo. The two men worked for XM Delivery, who had been entrusted by Best Buy to deliver their goods to their clients. They pulled up to the curb in their delivery truck, the late morning sun casting long shadows across Evelyn's neatly manicured lawn. The neighbourhood was quiet, with only the occasional chirp of birds breaking the silence. Evelyn's home was a modest one-storey house with a well-tended garden. David and Jorge moved to the back of the truck and began unstrapping the new washer and dryer. They rang the bell at the front door, and after a moment, Evelyn appeared. She was home alone this morning. She allowed the men inside and pointed them towards the laundry room, just down the hallway. David and Jorge manoeuvred the old washer and dryer out of the home. Once the old appliances were loaded onto the truck, they returned with the new washer and dryer. They carefully navigated the tight hallway and into the laundry room. They had to remove the laundry room door to fit them both in. Jorge positioned the new washer, while David connected the hoses and adjusted the dryer to fit in its place. After a short while, the new washer and dryer were installed. David's phone began to ring, and he stepped outside into the driveway to take the phone call. Jorge remained inside with Evelyn. It was his job to show her how to work the new washer and dryer, and to answer any questions that she may have had. David stood outside the home, his phone pressed to his ear as he chatted with the office. The job had gone smoothly so far, and he was eager to wrap up and move on to the next delivery. Just as he pocketed his phone about 10 minutes later, ready to head back inside to check on Jorge, he heard a deafening scream coming from inside Evelyn's home. David froze as the scream echoed in his ears. It sounded like a woman, and she sounded terrified. He dropped everything and sprinted back towards the front door, but found that it was now locked. He knocked on the door and called out to Jorge. Moments later, his colleague appeared. His eyes were wide, and he had a nervous look on his face. "Let's go," he said to David. He looked possessed, with David later recollecting. That wasn't him. At first, David thought that maybe Evelyn wasn't happy with the job and had gotten angry at Jorge. He'd been privy to the anger of customers multiple times himself in the past. David said that he wanted to go inside and see what the problem was, but Jorge closed the door and tried to stop him. David eventually barged past him and went straight into the laundry room. What he saw next stopped him dead in his tracks. Blood was splattered across the pristine walls of the laundry room, and thick, acrid smoke filled the air, stinging his eyes and burning his throat. Evelyn lay lifeless and bloody on the floor, and she was on fire. Jorge had followed David back into the home and stood nearby looking nervous. In a state of shock, David bolted back outside, his hands trembling as he reached for his cell phone. His fingers fumbled over the screen as he dialed 911, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The call connected, but David could barely form the words.
Location of your emergency.
Yes.
Repeat the address. What subdivision are you in?
This is Boca Raton.
Right.
It's a
What subdivision is that? Which one?
This is everything. This is street.
Okay. Is this in what subdivision? What subdivision?
I'm sorry, I don't speak English very well. I have some situation here, please. Very bad.
What's the problem?
I need somebody. I need the police, please.
What happened?
I don't know.
I need somebody, David managed to say, his voice breaking with emotion. I need the police here. The dispatcher on the other end of the line tried to calm him, but the terror had taken hold. There was also a language barrier, but David tried to explain what he had just seen inside Evelyn's home.
Are you hurt?
No, somebody help.
Somebody what? What? I need to know what's wrong.
I don't know. I do the delivery. I'm working and do the delivery for this house.
Yes?
And then I heard a lot of screaming inside. When I go inside, I saw the ladies in the floor.
Okay, so did something happen to you? Because you're crying. I don't understand.
Yeah. What do you think? I was to see somebody in the floor or start laughing or something like that?
Sir, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but tell somebody, please.
So you need paramedics, not the police. That's why I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, both.
As he pleaded with the dispatcher, out of the corner of his eye, David saw movement. Jorge Lechazo emerged from the home. His expression was eerily calm, as if nothing had happened. He muttered something under his breath, an insult in Spanish that David couldn't fully process through his panic. "I don't know what to do," David cried out to the dispatcher, his voice rising in desperation. "What do I do? He's getting away," he said. Jorge was heading straight for the delivery truck, his steps quickening as he approached. David's panic spiked as he realised what Jorge was attempting to do. "He got into the delivery truck and he's trying to drive away," David said frantically. But Jorge's escape was far from smooth. He fumbled with the gear stick, unable to get the truck started. The old vehicle was a stick shift, something Jorge clearly wasn't familiar with. David watched, paralysed by fear and disbelief, as Jorge struggled in vain to flee the scene. Finally, the dispatcher managed to get David to focus, urging him to stay where he was until help arrived. Within minutes, the wall of sirens filled the air, growing louder as police cars and emergency vehicles converged on the quiet neighbourhood. By the time they arrived, Jorge had fled, and David pointed police in the direction he left. One of the officers observed the vehicle trying to leave the neighbourhood and intercepted it, arresting Jorge Lechazo. He was sweaty and shaking, and the hair on his legs were burned, and his skin was ashy. The responding officer sat Jorge down on the sidewalk, and he began to hyperventilate, before saying that his body was going numb. Jorge almost lost consciousness, before sitting up and beginning to cry. He began to mutter that somebody had been following him, and that they were going to kill his mother. He was arrested and transported to the Boca Raton Regional Hospital. Back at Evelyn's home, the firefighters entered and headed directly towards the laundry room, which was the source of the smoke. There was a thick haze that was clouding the room. They found Evelyn unconscious and covered in blood, leaning up against the washing machine. There was a large gash on her head, and blood was pouring out of it. The top half of Evelyn's body was on fire, and she was moaning. On top of the washing machine lay a wood-handled mallet stained with blood. On the floor were bent prescription glasses and a burnt $1 bill. Nearby, the new dryer was running its very first cycle. A firefighter promptly got water from a nearby faucet and put out the flames. He noticed that in the kitchen, the oven and stove burners were switched on. There was a can of acetone on top of the stove, along with Evelyn's open purse and wallet. Evelyn was carefully moved onto a stretcher and into the awaiting ambulance. With sirens blazing, they sped to the Del Rey Medical Center, where Evelyn was reported to be in critical condition. She had sustained skull and face fractures, along with a brain bleed and second and third degree burns to more than half of her body. It was decided that Evelyn would be flown to the burn unit at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, but this was postponed as it was discovered that her brain bleed needed immediate surgery. Evelyn was placed in hospice, but tragically, her body gave up before the surgery can be completed. Jorge Lechazo was subsequently charged with first-degree murder, first-degree arson, and armed burglary with battery. After Jorge Lechazo was transported to Palm Beach County Jail, he was taken into the interrogation room. He appeared nervous as he fidgeted in his chair. He told the detectives he was born in Cuba and came to the United States in 2014. He completed 2 years at Miami Springs Senior High before he obtained his GED. Lechazo had worked for XM Delivery for 1 year and 8 months. His role involved loading and unloading trucks, opening boxes inside homes, and occasionally installing washers, dryers, and refrigerators. He told the detectives that his day typically began at 5 a.m. at the warehouse, and then the first delivery was at around 8 a.m. That morning was different, he said. He didn't normally work with David, and he didn't normally work Mondays. However, David's normal helper was in Cuba, and Lechazo said he could use some extra money. They had completed 2 refrigerator installations in the area before they arrived at Evelyn's front door. At first, nothing unusual happened. Lechazo described unloading Evelyn's appliances into the home and said he then picked up the boxes and sat in the truck, waiting for David to complete the paperwork. He described Evelyn as small and said she gave them water and showed them her swimming pool. He said to the detectives, "I didn't have much contact with her." According to Lechazo, that was all that happened that morning. However, he was then pressed for more information. The detectives told him about the 911 call that David had placed and pointed at the burns on his legs.
Your hair is all burned on your legs.
Por eso te quemaron tus piernas.
So you're there when the fire starts.
Lechazo seemed surprised and asked, "What happened?" The detective responded, "That's what I need you to tell me." Lechazo replied and said that his head hurt.
His heart hurts.
Okay. If your heart hurts, then you'll tell me what you did to her.
Si te duele el corazón, dile entonces qué le hiciste.
Mi mamá. No voy a ver más la luz.
Dime.
No voy a ver más la luz.
I'm never gonna see the light again. ¿Por qué?
Saquen de mí, mátenme.
Just take me out of here and kill me.
If he wants to believe in God and he wants his mom to forgive him, he will tell us what happened.
Si tú quieres creer, si tú dices que
It
crees en
starts
Dios,
today, Jorge. It starts today. To get forgiveness from God and from your
para
mom,
que te perdone
it
Dios
starts right now
y para que te perdone tu mamá empieza ahora.
by being honest.
Tienes que ser honesto. Lo que pasó ya pasó, pero tu mamá no te puede perdonar hasta que tú no seas honesto.
You have to be honest with yourself and God.
Tienes que ser honesto contigo y con Dios.
After a couple of minutes of back and forth, Lechazo admitted that he hurt Evelyn. He said that after David left Evelyn's home to take a phone call, he picked up a mallet that was in the laundry room and hit Evelyn on the side of the head. He described going into the garage and closing the overhead door. He retrieved some acetone from the garage and then returned to the laundry room. He said that he then poured the acetone on Evelyn and set her on fire. Several times throughout the interrogation, Lechazo appears overwhelmed. He rocked back and forth with his head in his hands, and even sat down on the floor at one point and began to cry. The topic then turned to Lachazo's drug use, mental health, and the comments he made about threats to his mother. He admitted that in the morning he had used cocaine and smoked marijuana through a vape pen. Lachazo then appeared to become confused and cryptic again. He mentioned being alone in the laundry room with Evelyn and referred to people who he began to purchase marijuana from during high school. He claimed that these people had touched him a month prior and said that he owed them money. He was in so much debt that he was struggling to pay for his car and said that these people called him to do things, like robbery and stealing. He said that if he didn't, they threatened to kill his mother. At one point, Lachazo claimed a man was waiting for him outside his home that morning, and he was waiting, quote, to give him money, to give him the things, unquote. The detectives asked whether these people had directed him to kill Evelyn and rob her. He responded, "My mom," repeatedly. He then added, "Her or my mom." According to Lachazo, he heard the voices of the drug dealers when he was in Evelyn's home that morning. They told him that Evelyn needed to die, or his mother would die. Lachazo continued to ramble, telling the detectives, "I see things lately. Those people appear everywhere." He talked about hallucinations and paranoia, stating, "Sometimes I felt someone was watching me or something." But he then told detectives that there was nothing wrong with him. At several points in the interrogation, Lachazo asked the detectives to take his life. He said to them, "Take me out and kill me. Use that pistol and that's it." He also queried, "At 21 years old, I threw my life away. Do you know how long I'm going to spend wearing orange?" After the murder, Best Buy announced it was suspending its relationship with the subcontracted delivery company. They had contracted the delivery of their products to J.B. Hunt, an Arkansas shipping company service. In turn, J.B. Hunt had contracted with XM Delivery Service, a company based in Miami, where Lachazo had worked. They further announced that they would be hiring an independent security firm to review their screening and safety programs. The fact that Evelyn had been killed by a delivery driver she welcomed into her home terrified Boca Raton and the rest of the world. The same thing could have happened to anybody, as we as customers are at the mercy of the delivery company. Boca Raton Council member Andrea O'Rourke commented, "The fact that it happened here is shocking, and the fact that it happened from a well-known company like this is scary." Robin Siegel, who lived in a gated community across the street from Evelyn, commented, "I'm scared. When you have something delivered from the store, Best Buy, Home Depot, you don't know if they vet or don't vet the people that are coming into your home." Palm Beach County Commissioner Robert Weinroth announced that he wanted to take action. He suggested that the county draft an ordinance that imposes a licensing requirement and background check for people who deliver goods. He said, "This is inconceivable, and this is something that I don't think we can just stand by and say, it's just the way it is." Two commissioners, Mayor Mac Bernard and Commissioner Melissa McKinley, opposed the idea. McKinley questioned, "You have so many different types of companies that deliver products to your home. Where do we draw the line?" In September, Evelyn's family filed a lawsuit against Lachazo, the delivery driver David, Best Buy, J.B. Hunt, and XM Delivery. They argued that a background check would have prevented Evelyn's murder. At the time of the murder, Lachazo had worked there for 20 months without incident. Furthermore, his criminal record totaled one misdemeanor arrest for stealing a cell phone. However, at the time of the murder, Lachazo had worked there for 20 months without incident. Furthermore, his criminal record totaled one misdemeanor arrest for stealing a cell phone. He'd been arrested in 2018 after stealing the phone from a convenience store in 2017. He was initially charged with felony grand theft, but that was reduced to misdemeanor petite theft. Since he had no previous record, he was allowed to enter a pre-trial diversion program, and there was no conviction on his record. He further had several traffic tickets, and he had a suspended licence, although he hadn't been the one driving the truck. The lawsuit said that Evelyn had purchased the washer and dryer from Best Buy and had no idea that the delivery drivers worked for a company that worked for a company that worked for Best Buy. The family provided a statement, with her daughter-in-law Sloane Udell stating, "She'd been looking forward to her golden years, with many more milestones to celebrate with her children and grandchildren. Instead, she experienced unspeakable terror and pain in her final moments." John Morgan, the founder of Morgan & Morgan, commented,
"She thought, I can trust Best Buy. It turns out she couldn't."
In the wake of Evelyn's murder, her family established a charitable fund in her name to benefit libraries and literacy projects. Best Buy responded and asked the family's permission to donate to their fund. They also said they supported the calls for mandatory background checks across the retail industry. In October, the Palm Beach County State's Attorney's Office filed paperwork indicating that they would be seeking the death penalty against the Chazo if he were convicted. Evelyn's family responded and said that they fully supported the decision. Around the same time, the bill to require background checks for delivery people was filed in Tallahassee. It was named the Evelyn Udell Delivery Bill and had two components. First, big box stores would be required to notify customers when the delivery service has been subcontracted to another business. Second, the bill would make more extensive Level 2 background checks mandatory. A Level 1 check simply looks at the background of a person by their name within the state. A Level 2 check is fingerprint-based and searches both state and national databases. It wouldn't apply to all delivery people, just those who cross the threshold and enter a customer's home. By January, the bill had been filed at the Florida House, and the name had been renamed the Evie Udell Public Safety Act. But Evelyn's family weren't happy with the bill. They said that it wouldn't have saved her life and demanded that it be renamed. In a statement they said, "Evie paid the ultimate price, and we are determined that if her name is associated with prospective legislation, it will be used to fully protect those who are vulnerable." They believe that the bill contained halfway measures and didn't go far enough. They wanted the new law to include drug testing for new employees, as well as continuous drug testing throughout their employment. Since Lachazo didn't have a conviction, a background check wouldn't have flagged him, but drug tests could have set off a red flag. According to Republican Florida House Representative Mike Caruso, the family were being disingenuous in their characterization of the bill. He said that a letter he received from the family claiming he ignored them contained significant misstatements. He said he never once told the family the bill was final, or that he opposed to adding a drug testing component. In May, Evelyn's family dropped the lawsuit. The filing didn't explain why the lawsuit was dropped or mention a settlement. Jorge Lachazo was ordered to stand trial, and it was scheduled to begin in January of 2023. The day before jury selection began, Lachazo forego a jury trial and opted instead for a bench trial. This meant that a judge would serve as both the judge and the jury to hear the evidence and determine his guilt. It was a risky move, but one that proved key in potentially saving his life. In response, the prosecution announced that they were no longer seeking the death penalty. Lon Lanza Caduce, a professor in criminology, law and society at the University of Florida, commented in the media, "What allegedly happened in this case is dramatic and gruesome. The fear is that lay jurors would be less able to separate their feelings about the events to apply the law carefully in their deliberations of the facts." So the murder trial went ahead on the 23rd of January 2023. The prosecution argued that Lechazo had killed Evelyn out of greed. After he killed her, he had stolen over $200 from her purse before fleeing the home. The money was found inside his pocket when he was arrested. According to Assistant State Attorney Reed Scott, the voices hadn't driven Lechazo to kill, like he claimed in his interrogation. He stated, "It was an attempt to take money, take more money, take all the money."
This defendant did in fact grab a hold of this acetone can, squeeze it as he doused Ms. Udell with that accelerant. The state will also present evidence in the form of fingerprint analysis conducted on that acetone can. And what Your Honor will see is that on the back of that acetone can, the front of that acetone can, and the bottom of that acetone can are the fingerprints of this defendant, Jorge Lechazo.
Defense attorneys Renee Chavola and Scott Pribble refuted that greed was the motivation. They didn't deny that Lechazo had attacked Evelyn in her home that morning, but argued that the prosecution couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intended to kill her.
The state is going to present only circumstantial evidence in an attempt to prove what occurred in a very short few-minute duration. Mr. Dupree Lechazo entered the Udell home and remained in the Udell home to simply deliver those appliances. At no time did he ever create a plan or a premeditated design to kill Mrs. Udell. At no point did he rob her or burglarize that home.
Defense attorney Pribble had asked the judge to consider how stress and panic can affect a person's ability to reason. He also asked her to take into consideration his client's age and emotional state, his immaturity, and his cocaine use, which may have impaired his judgment and intention. The defence had tried to get Lechazo's statements about the voices in his head excluded as evidence. However, this was denied. During the trial, evidence was presented, including forensic evidence. Lechazo's DNA was found on the murder weapon. After a very short trial, Judge Delilah Weiss announced that she had reached a verdict.
This court finds the defendant, Jorge Dupree, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
It had come just moments after the closing arguments were presented. The evidence had been overwhelming, with the defence even acknowledging that Lechazo had attacked Evelyn. The courtroom was heavy with silence as the sentencing phase began. It had been 5 days since the guilty verdict was delivered on the 5th of April, a decision that brought some measure of justice to the family of Evelyn. Yet as they gathered now, the loss still felt raw. The reality of Evelyn's absence, a wound that time had not yet begun to heal. Evelyn's family sat together in the front row. They were given the opportunity to present victim impact statements, a chance to speak to the judge and to the court about the woman they had lost. When Raton, Evelyn's eldest son, rose to speak, the room seemed to hold its breath. He took a moment to collect himself, and when he spoke, his voice was steady, but tinged with deep emotion. He spoke of his mother as a Penn State graduate, a librarian, a volunteer. He referred to her as the most unathletic person you'd ever meet, and said that she hated to cook, but always loved to read. Raton fondly recalled how his mother was always a great tipper and was tiny, the same size as her 10-year-old grandson. Raton was emotional as he recollected how his mother was covered in protective wrappings in the hospital, and that he could only kiss her ankle before she passed away. He then turned his attention to Lechazo and told him, With any luck, the prison justice we see in movies will be visited upon you. Judge Wise then addressed Lachazo. She said to him, "This was a harmless woman in her mid-70s, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a friend to so many people, a woman who had a life well lived with honour, full of love, compassion, anything that you'd want in a person. That much is clear." She then sentenced Jorge Lachazo to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. She also added an additional 30 years for first-degree arson. Lachazo was then handcuffed and escorted from the courtroom to begin serving his life sentence. As Harron Udell stepped out of the courtroom, a faint but resolute smile crossed his face. It wasn't a smile of joy or satisfaction, but one of grim resolve. The weight of the trial, the pain of reliving his mother's life and loss, had taken its toll. But now, with the sentencing phase behind them, there was a sense of closure beginning to form. Harron turned to Prosecutor Scott, who had fought so diligently for justice on behalf of his family. He said to him, "I hope that guy suffers for the rest of his life." Prosecutor Scott nodded before replying, "He will." Well, besties, that is it for this episode of Morbidology. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to my newest supporters up on Patreon: Nicholas, Jessica, Nicole, and Adam. So last night I got an email from Patreon saying that Apple is adding a 30% tax to new subscribers from November onwards. So if you'd like to join Morbidology up on Patreon, please join on the desktop instead of the app. So this is how to get around those fees. In the email, they recommended that creators on Patreon increase their prices to cover these costs, but I'm keeping mine the same and taking the hit. So please do sign up on the website instead of the app to avoid the 30% tax. This only applies to new subscribers from November onwards, so you can still join in the app for the normal price up until then. If you join Morbidology on Patreon, I upload ad-free and early release episodes, bonus episodes of Morbidology Plus, the next of which I'm recording after this one, and I also do behind the scenes and send out a handwritten thank you card, along with some cool Patreon exclusive merch. Morbidology is just a one-woman team, so Patreon really does help out. And I know that the Apple update is gonna massively screw me over, but I'd like to keep the prices the same as they are now. You can join Morbidology on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Remember to check us out at morbidology.com for more information about this episode and to read some true crime articles. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and have an amazing week.